Hello and welcome to BOT. Nidal, Lakshit, Suman, and Manthan meet here to talk about the bits of tech as it relates to digital transformation. Tune in and enjoy. Hello, everyone. We are back in the same uniform as the previous episode. You'll notice that this basically means that this video was recorded right after the previous one, right? If you notice my hairline, it is exactly where it was. How would you be able to know this? A very simple and plain example of our topic today, which is video analytics, and along with that, the role that audio analytics also plays to get there. Video and audio analytics, I think, are the least spoken about things when it comes to the core analytics industry that all of us are a part of, right? And having been there myself, meaning in the core weeds of implementation of video analytics, I know for a fact that it is one of the most interesting things I've personally worked on, right? Or that it could get super interesting if you just understand the elements that a video has, right? All of us have seen at least one YouTube video in our life by now. The elements that the video UI has are so fascinating once you get to know the engineering behind it, meaning the progress bar as to how much a video has already been streamed versus what is left to be streamed. That in itself has at least five metrics to capture, right? The play pause button, the time for which it has been played, the time for which it has been buffered already, and how many people saw it through the end. Like I just randomly spoke about four to five metrics that can be captured right there. When you do core video analytics, you get to understand that it's not only this progress bar where the analytics of a video lies, but it has gone much beyond that into now reading facial expressions of when somebody is on a video and then saying what this person might be thinking, right? To tagging what one is wearing in there and the ability to click into that video. For example, I'm an influencer. You are able to click onto this headphone in the video that you are seeing right now on YouTube and go to the link directly, right? So these are some cool ways that video analytics has taken place. Along with that, my recent area of interest has been into audio analytics as well, which is very far in terms of what the daily analytics applications look like, right? So it is very small, but it is so neat. It is so neat where you could simply uh, hear my voice, record it, and translate it into other language, right? This has this translator has an analytics uh, element built into it where I could say the word as word, or I could say it as word, right? Or I could say just a word. And there are like 5,000 more ways of saying the same word, right? That is where the analytics aspect of it comes in and how this audio gets translated into something meaningful. We will hit more elements like this in today's episode, but let's hear what you'll have to say.
One quick example that I can recollect, I needed voice analytics so bad when I was attending a conference. So I was attending a measure camp and it was in Azerbaijan. And after getting there, I realized that most of the sessions were in the local language, and I was frantically looking for apps that could translate live, and it had certain limitations because some of those apps had some of the most common languages like English, French, Russian, but did not have like the language that I was specifically looking for. The problem did not get solved, but it is seen very much, and it's very common as well. I know that it does not get talked about as much, but even on this Zoom call, you notice these days that when you join certain meetings, you have virtual assistants. And what do these virtual assistants do? They essentially take notes, simplify things for you by analyzing the voice, and that's just one of the applications. You're walking on a random street, which has CCTV cameras, right? That footage can be analyzed by, for example, if that's at a metro station, the city planning or the city police might be using video analytics for monitoring that. When you're at an airport, you have now smart gates, where you just have to show your face, and while you walk through, um, it gives you what's the like, it opens up based off of the footage. But there's so many applications, literally, it's seen in everyday life.
Absolutely. So you mentioned about your work event experience, right, at the Measure Camp. Let me tell you, I was speaking to one of my clients earlier, and her accent is not something that I usually hear. So it so happened that I obviously understood the context of what she was speaking during the meeting, but there were one or two words that I was not able to understand. So when, like, the both of us went on mute and somebody else was speaking, which was not really relevant to me at that time, I just went on Google, and through their feature, I just spoke that word out and just tried to see if something comes up that makes sense. That was like the quickest thing that I could do at that time, and it really saves us, a lot of times. So this has been an application of voice recognition technology, if so to speak. The other and most commonly used is Google Maps. Correct. We are driving, and you will in for Google Maps. So I know for using Apple phone or an iWatch, I can just say, hey Siri, call so and so. But while using Google Maps, it's a voice recognition technology which is used, obviously, but we can't really speak to it, correct?
You can
If
I'm
use
I'm
sure there's
your,
an application out there, yeah.
yeah, and
Because I
even with
did read
your,
upon it, but I don't know. I right now I just don't recall. But yeah, okay, never mind. So for me, in terms of voice analytics, my first experience went back when I was doing my master's is analyzing the call center data, right? So if you're selling a product, and then you will have your call center when customers will call, and they will speak about their experiences, or it's going to be about the challenges that they're facing in the product, or something that they want to know more about. So analyzing customer call center data to see where your customers are at in terms of product satisfaction was one of the first examples that I had worked on earlier in the voice analytics space, right? So obviously there's a methodology that we follow, but that was one of the examples. Um, Now, in terms of video analytics, as we are speaking for my aunt who was like of an age, we took her for an medical imaging, right? Your MRIs, CT scans, X-rays, and also during surgeries, a lot of times it is recorded to proctor it, to improve the surgical performances, and also to see if the doctors are following the right protocols or not. So this is one of the very interesting space for me in terms of video analytics.
I'll I'll bring the technology aspect of it in this, right? And that's why I took a pause, because I was thinking way too many things, so I had to iron my thought out. The One of the core challenges with video and audio analytics is that it needs other technologies with it so that it can entirely work well. For example, one is the fact that my voice is being understood by a system, heard by a system, and it is being thrown to a translator. But that translator is another system which will need its own inputs and mechanisms through which it will translate, right? And then the eventual interface for output. So the layers which are involved in video and audio analytics are more than one, right? Like when we go to the basics of communication, or if you pick any good communication textbook out there, you will read words like intonation, pitch, accent, these things, right? All of these things, from a core computer engineering standpoint, are very peculiar to code. And when you do that, it brings its own set of challenges. For example, if I were to say, "Hey Siri" to someone else's phone, is it right for that phone to hear my voice, understand my voice, or no, right? Having things like these in place has brought down the adoption of it. Like, yes, it is very convenient for me to say, "Hey Siri, call so and so" when I'm driving a car, right? But is it in my habit to do that every time I am using a phone? Possibly not, right? Or how many times will I take the effort of pressing a button on my headphone here to say, "Hey Google, do this task for me," as opposed to actually just doing it on the phone? So it is also about how old the technology is, that the adoption has not been as great as we want it to be, right? It is happening. It will get there. There are things like voice analysis in a song where you pick all the elements of somebody, train your algorithm in that voice, put new words, and now a new song is ready with that person's voice without that person even being there, right? We know that this is very much out there. Like, that's the reality of today. Every audio and video can be manipulated to a level where you cannot say whether it is I who is speaking in there or it is a trained voice which is just speaking on my behalf, right? So essentially, the world that we are heading to is where this entire podcast can just take all the data that we all are trained on, that we all have so far. We put this as an input to a system and it will start spinning out new podcast. And I'm sure Lakshit is very curious to say how somebody built um what is the Apple's founder, that guy,
Was me
Steve
actually.
Jobs. Yeah, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg's dialogue, or Steve Jobs and Einstein's dialogue, where two AI systems were constantly talking to each other. So let's hear it from you, Lakshit. I'm sure you have a better take than I do.
No, no, no. In fact, what I was going to talk about is, the evolution of uh, these kind of analytics. These diversified forms of analytics. Just a while back we were talking about predictive analytics. We were talking about the four types of, like, the majority of analytics, which begins from descriptive to exploratory, predictive, and then prescriptive. And now you have video and voice analytics, which are just very separate branches of predictive analytics. uh, we were so far learning only about linear regression, classification, and then boom, these new technology come in. So let's understand why they came into the picture in the first place. I mean, technology is, accelerating at a very, very rapid pace. Believe me, only a few years back, I was actually manually looking at customer videos in order to understand customer behavior. And a few years back, we did not even have that technology. In order to understand customer behavior, you would actually have to look at your data points. You'll have to see where they were coming on your website, what they were doing through some analytics platform, see the session time, session length, those typical metrics, create a customer journey, analyze the customer journey, see the fall off, throughput rates, and analyze and predict that what your and look at your conversion rates and try and predict what the next best action could be in order to serve your customer. So the idea behind video and voice analytics, in my opinion, came from this need to understand human nature better, to bring more qualitative inputs into the quantitative inputs that were being offered by digital systems. Uh, Digital systems, were fast becoming redundant, where they were only giving out transactional inputs to our system, and we needed more qualitative inputs. Like, for example, while it is okay a person going from page A to B, but are they stopping in page A at particular sections at page A before moving to page B? Yes, they may click the same. Two users on a digital platform may have done exactly the same journey, which is came to page A, B, C, did three clicks, entered on the same page, exited on the same page. But there are, and both of them converted, purchased the same product, but their sentiment and their quality and their experience with your brand could have been much different. How do you understand that? The data tells us the same experience, but the reality is different. One is a very loyal customer who came to your website, knew what they were looking for, purchased it, and went about making the purchase in a matter of 5 seconds. Your time to serve them was very low. Organic customer ROI is much higher. Whereas in another case, it was a new customer who simply liked the first product you offered him, simply like the first product we offered them, which is why they did not explore much. They simply purchased that first product and went about the business. But this is a risk to the business because they want their new customers to spend time with them. They want them to explore their products. They want them to see their categories, be informed, make an educational guess, and then move about, making that transaction. So even though both of these customers had the same journey, same everything, to a business, the same journey may not be as profitable from B as it was for A, because they want their consumers to spend more time. Likewise, uh, we have these session recordings that we actually used to see. So there were many digital software that would, of course, anonymized, for all our consumers out there who think that this, what's the privacy angle to it? These are all anonymized sessions. You can't see it. But there are many compliant softwares out there that do session recording, so you can actually on your website see when a person came in, what clicks and purchases they did, what
Full
actions they
story,
did.
just as an example, right? Full story does that well.
Yes, full
Yeah.
story. So full story was a platform, in fact, where we could see all the session recording and check how a customer, perform. And this is a qualitative data. This is as equivalent to your market research that you do with focus discussions and interviews in order to understand where the customers are facing friction in their journey in order to avoid them.
Yeah,
That is
instead of
one.
trying to figure out what could have happened, you're seeing what actually
Yes.
happened.
What actually happened and why did it happen, and what could have been the expected result. Like, you try and benchmark that with your expected result, that my benchmark for this journey should have been 5 pages, 3 clicks, 5-minute journey in total in order to go from point A to point B. This guy took 10 minutes. Why? Can I lower it from 10 minutes to 5 minutes? That's one story. So the idea behind video analytics is seeing is believing. That's the uh, bottom line to it. That while the data may speak about it, in order to enhance my data with some qualitative inputs, seeing is believing. On the contrary, in case of voice analytics, of course, we'll talk about more about very advanced use cases. Would be something like, where we say music transcends all language. Why do we say that? Because music beyond language is all about tonality of it, the rhythm of it, what we feel about it. Likewise, with voice analytics, we can understand that the two customers who have given me exactly the same review, 4 out of 5, let's say, exactly the same review, pretty much the same comment, understand their motivation behind it. One may just have given me 4 out of 5 because they liked my product, but one may have actually given me 4 out of 5 because they did not like my product enough. How do I understand that? By looking at their comments, their text analysis. Did this say, provide me with a feedback? They could have given me 4 out of 5 because they're just, a nice person, did not really enjoy my product that much, but they just happen to be a nice person. So they did give me a feedback. They called up my call center. As someone was mentioning call center analysis, they actually called my call center, told them that, hey, this was think these are a couple of things that could have been better in your product, but I'm still giving you 4. I'll give you a chance. On the other hand, the other guy simply liked my product because they were not used to, let's say, such advanced products. For example, maybe a new chocolate, new type of chocolate, a low sugar or sugar-free chocolate. They tried it and they said, hey, I've been looking for this product for a long time. I'm gonna keep trying it. Here's something you've done good. Even when feedbacks are given, they can be given in different tones of voices, anger. uh, so it's important to understand that the sentiment analysis and our voice of our customer, right from the voice of our customer, like truly from the voice of our customer, and not just from some text analytics that gives us data labeled as positive and negative, but actually categorizes as positive, negative, but truly from the based on the tone of voice, anger, relaxation, pauses between statements and words, in order to give me a more accurate analysis of my customer.
I
With
think it
that,
is.
I'll take a pause.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think, Lakshit, to your point, the layers are so many, as I was saying earlier. Um, Eventually, if I were to analyze the audio signals that a customer left as a result of an interaction with somebody at the call center, right? And with all the analysis, I were to reach at the five basic conclusions, or just for the sake of this argument, two basic conclusions, red or green, right? Then I might as well give them a button, which is red or green, and have them press it, right? That's the uh, cost of technology, not in terms of just money, but like the cost itself, right? Like, do you really want to have those 5 to 6 layers? Is it worth for a business whose core business is not voice analytics to have those 5 or 6 layers implemented in their existing call center ERP or CRM systems, such that this sort of analysis can be brought to light? Or would they rather eventually ask one question to the customer of how much would you rate us on 1 to 10, right? 1 being the worst and 10 being the best, or is it red or green, right? Just a simpler example of that is when we use some kiosks at airport. They have those um, like, it is also called a kiosk as such, which is like a stand where it has 5 emoticons. You press whatever you feel out of it, right? And I almost always press the angry one because that's how I'm feeling that day, right? Uh, but
You're like Hulk wearing a green t-shirt. You're always angry.
yeah, minus the muscles though. So, uh, no, but very fairly speaking, what I'm saying is that I think the reason why, voice analytics as an application or video analytics as an application is not taking off the way social media analytics or other analytics applications are taking off, is because of the layers that are involved in it and the eventual output that it gives, right? Like, if I am a cyber uh I'm in the cyber criminal cell, like whatever that is called, where it is my job to analyze the high profile criminal, the way they are speaking, and then do things. There are jobs which are just basic profiling. It's called profiling. That profession is profiling, where they have studied psychology enough that based on the way I'm saying, they're able to tell whether I'm saying the truth or no, or how likely is it that the information that I've given is true, right? This can be an example of where such audio video analytics can actually come in play, right? That is another way of saying what Lakshit was saying, like full story. It's a heat map, right? It's a heat map of here are the positions that were clicked, or here are the areas of interest on a given web session, right? The same way, in a voice and in an audio environment, a heat map gets created based on here are the times I moved my hands. Here is when my tone changed because I was thinking in my brain. Like, you can train the computer system towards these things, right from the audio signal strength to the tone to everything else, where the security system then spits out something which is good enough to use, not great enough. It is not for sure, it's not certain, but it will tell you that, hey, this looks to be erring towards positive or negative, right? Some other applications where I think things can be done differently is where our um, chat applications or our video conferencing applications, now all of them have a transcripting option. But those transcripts, in my opinion, are never the minutes of meetings you sent, right? You can, yes, if you had difficulty in understanding my accent, then maybe read it through, but that's the extent at which that transcription is. I'm sure there are people working on having those transcriptions and also then having insights out of it, which is basically the minutes of meeting you sent, right? If you got there, then the voice analytics application will take like a complete cycle, where now everything that you spoke is by default put into a meeting, minutes of meeting, and after having used it enough number of times, everybody knows that, hey, it is spit out by a voice system, but this is how accurate it is, and here is the format in which it will give you the details, and go from there. That's where I think some applications could be more handy, and that there's a long way to go. There are some other security instances I want to talk about, but maybe after some of us have spoken.
Manthan is so zealous at that point. I think you can just go on and on, but I really love that passion. And from what I understand, if I have to analyze the voice, Manthan's voice, he might not like writing minutes of meeting because now you have to analyze 1 hour with conversation and then write down points. And then what if people may agree or not agree to what you've written? So the best is the transcription services. Um, and we can utilize that, right? So I'm absolutely aligned to what you've said, and also what Lakshan and Dal have spoken about. Let's say a customer's feedback, correct? It's a very big thing. All the companies at the end of the day are selling products, and they want to improve customer satisfaction because it will lead to loyalty of the customers, and loyalty of customer means a decent amount of revenue growth year on year. That's what is expected, right? So if we consider the use case of improving customer satisfaction through voice analytics, why this really rings a bell is even when we were using those telephones at home and we used to call up at a call center, it was like da 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 da, saying something, and then uh, this session, or probably your voice will be recorded for training and quality purposes. At that time, I didn't really understand. Yes, Nidal, you have to say something on that.
You just told my example. You can go on now.
Okay. So, I've always had this experience, and when I was younger, I didn't really understand. I'm like, what is it? I just called up for some basic thing, and why are they recording my voice? But now I really understand why. So, a general way to solve this voice analytics, particularly a call center data type of a problem, is obviously data collection. You will analyze the call duration, your customer's voice, uh, the agent's logs related, and the data related to it. Uh, the second step is going to be speech to text transcription services. Here is where we are translating what we spoke in the voice format to a text format to be able to analyze it, right? Um, so um, the next is going to be like once we have done that, um, we will do topic modeling. What happens in topic modeling is that we will try and understand. Now we have our data in the text format, so we will cluster our data into particular themes. So it's going to be, let's say, a theme A, theme B, theme C, right? And once we have that, I think Manthan and Lakshit spoke about sentiment analysis, correct? So post which, once you have your topics clustered or segmented, we would be doing sentiment analysis. Let's say we have a certain group of calls wherein we have angry customers more so, and then there'll be customers who have just called for a general inquiry, right? And so if these are the two clusters that we're working with, we analyze their sentiment and then build a predictive model on top of it. Now, why are we building a predictive model is to just analyze whether a call that we are getting from the customer, is it going to be an escalation related call, or whether that call might lead to the churn of the customer, right? So it's done at that level. And one of the interesting use cases, if I have to add in this very use case, is call routing optimization. So when we cluster the kind of calls through topic modeling, what we are doing is that, okay, with let's say an angry set of customer, agent group A will be able to take those calls more effectively. Let's say somebody who's more senior. Let's just base it on the level of seniority. Inquiry based could be sent to agents group B. So this is the scale that we're working with when we talk about voice analytics, right? Nidal, I'm so sorry that I took this topic, but please go ahead.
You actually stole two of my examples, not just one. So it's not bad. But I'd probably say, like, great minds think alike or something along those lines. But
There's
I was thinking
going to
of
be the next
the,
evolution.
sorry?
The next evolution. The next evolution of voice analytics will be called as telekinetic analysis
Yeah,
or
maybe a topic
telepathy
for
analysis.
a, yeah. So really a lot of examples there. My mind is literally like exploding with a lot of like thoughts, examples, applications. And you mentioned I had the same like question or dilemma that my voice is being recorded. Is it going to be used? Maybe at that point in time when it actually started, like when they actually started recording our customer care conversations, I'm positive that most companies did not have the systems in place to do like voice analytics at scale, right? And they were just like collecting data for the for collecting it, right? And not for like an end use where somebody's going to actually use analytics softwares or like process that amount of data. But these days things are much different, right? Now you have like SaaS has evolved so much, AI is built into every product. You have applications where you can like do that at a much lesser effort, and maybe slightly lesser investment as well. But that said, some really great examples there. I love how all of us eventually go into a lot of the web analytics examples, because that's like at core to what we do, and that's probably like bringing our set of perspectives, right? About the video, screen recording examples that we shared. That said, I've been recently looking at, I mentioned the virtual assistant options. I recently noticed that Zoom now has the AI companion and a couple of other options, which I haven't had a chance to explore yet because it needs to be enabled by the organization. So it needs to be like done at the organization level settings. But essentially, it makes the job really easy, dude. Like nobody loves writing minutes of meetings, right? Um, there's a lot of aspects to this. When it comes to voice analytics, it gives a lot of additional insight into um, what the tone of the person is, that's an additional data point right there. You don't get that with just text, right? We've all done, I think, in some part of our lives, we have done voice of customer analysis, and that's what you get from like social media comments, feedback. There you don't get the tone, you just get the text, and then you analyze the text and find insights or sentiments. You can assume that the sentiment would be positive or negative based on the choice of words that somebody used. But when you have voice, you have the tone, and that can be a direct indicator. Now, there's to top off of that, it can be a perception that it's a positive or a negative statement, but at the same time, someone could be lying, someone could be pretending, and that's where fraudulent behavior or somebody who's trying to trick, right? That's another like level where you have to now be able to also determine that, and that's where a lot of the voice analytics industry leaders are like looking at, right? Like assisting financial organizations like banks in order to help identify the fraudulent calls or the ones with the ill intent. And that's, I think, an application of where you're essentially looking at voice analytics possibly even replacing lie detector tests, right? That future is not far away, where you won't have like a polygraph test anymore. You are using AI for that, right? So that's how much these technologies are like revolutionizing our day-to-day use cases. I'll just end. I've been on a long rant, and that's just because the thoughts have been building up and bubbling up inside my head. But the last example I'd like to mention is, yesterday I was going through a manager training which was organized by my company, and have you guys taken a disc profile uh, test at some point? Have you heard about the disc profile?
So,
Okay, it's essentially a test that determines like within a spectrum which type of style do you have in your management. Is it more dominant? Is it more influential? Is it more steady and conscientious? So essentially, what we were doing was an exercise where we were being shown video snippets of people behaving or people talking for like 10 to 15 seconds, and from that the exercise was to read people, right, and understand what type or what style is their like management. And this is a crucial skill for a manager to have, because you're able to identify someone's particular style. You are able to accordingly work with that person, because you cannot apply the same rules to people of different styles. And that's one of the key things to understand as a manager. The reason I use this example is because as a human, I was trying to look at the video snippets and trying to understand what would be their manager style. But there could easily be an application where you're using a video analytics tool with feeding it the right inputs. And, if a tone is fast paced, there's a chance that the person is more dominant, and use those type of like elements to determine the outcome, right? So that was just a random example that came to mind. from a very recent experience.
Cool. Uh, Thanks for those examples, Nal. So, one of the coolest examples, that I can think of in video analytics and voice analytics, would be in sports, video analytics specifically. So, the technologies like DRS, Hawkeye, I mean, they are and used in football as well. Players now being dragged in real time. We watch, I don't know what, billions worth of video footage every day, and people are being recorded in those videos. They're running around, balls being passed everywhere, the strategies being seen, the tactics being utilized by every team are being recorded to such levels, and the insights derived out of it are being provided at such levels that you can now almost predict with just looking at the video that which team is going to win, almost at halftime, given what ball possession they have, how much control they have, who's passing, more to each other, and as such, so you can predict that which team is more likely to win than the other, based on certain parameters. Great application of this video analytics, maybe could be used by gamblers, uh, might have already been used by gamblers. Then we have that Hawkeye technology in cricket, where it has become so important in our everyday lives that people are now questioning Hawkeye like it's an actual thing. Meaning they say that the Hawkeye should not, if the ball passes here and there, uh, like slightly over the wicket, then we shouldn't be giving it umpire's call or something. They don't realize that Hawkeye at the end of the day is a predictive model, and that umpire's call is simply a margin of error being provided for the model itself and not for a player's convenience. But they have become so used to the technology that uh, that's how they feel it very safe. The other application, as Suman was already, I think Nidal was already alluding towards, was that Digi Yatra, where if we go to airports, we now just look at the cameras, and they can now identify what we look and what our credentials are, and let us pass through. There are concerns around such technologies, of course, with video, because it means that none of us are no longer, privacies are, can be compromised. I mean, if name, phone, mobile numbers are concerning, that are being shared with people, imagine your face, your entire behavior being shared with companies, what you look
Biometric.
like, where you're going, what you can do, makes it difficult, man. Difficult to live in a world where you want to hide away, where you maybe want to go, social media silent someday if you choose to. Makes it incredibly difficult for you to do that. Uh, Maybe easy to catch criminals, but difficult for people who want to just stay off the internet and go under the rock for a while if they want to.
That's really great. I think I've learned a lot today by listening to so many examples that all of us have to offer. And I guess Nidal did mention about traffic or surveillance management, correct? Let me give you two examples, interesting examples. So the first time that I've ever been out of the country was almost 7 years ago, and I'd been to Dubai. Okay, and I'm from Mumbai originally, so we have traffic control people on the road, correct? Now, when I went to Dubai and I was at my sister's place, she was driving me around. Um, and I was wondering, why don't I even see a single policeman here, right? I mean, I said, what if I'm speeding? Nobody's there to stop me and just give me a challan. I don't know. I mean, probably a ticket, correct? And that's where video analytics come into picture when I understand it. A couple of years later, when I understood that, and it's a very interesting example that it's a very good way that you can not to actually monitor your traffic control and also see if people are adhering to the rules and regulations or not, and that you don't really have to deploy a lot of workforce from the government on the road, correct, to be able to manage it. So this is such a good application of video analytics that you see, you you track the license plate of the car, And then you're also tracking the speed limit. And then if they overspeed, then there's a ticket right to the registered number, correct? So that's one. The other one was recently here in Canada, we were traveling somewhere on the outskirts, and a friend who was driving the car mentioned that the helicopters above us were actually tracking our speed. So if we oversped, we would be given tickets. And for me, it's like the first experience. I didn't really know if something like this existed at all, correct? So there's a mechanism of how these kind of analytics are being utilized in a real uh, as a real life application, right, on a day-to-day basis. So that's the thing. If I consider a business use case, when we walk into a store, generally there are cameras everywhere, correct? So the companies want to analyze which is the favorite spot of the customer, correct? So that they can actually very tactfully place their products on the shelf. It's a very big problem to solve, correct? Shelf optimization, and then also forecast or predict through those videos how many footfall am I going to get in the next month or on month basis. So just by we might just think that okay, there's just cameras installed in the store so that nobody steals something from there, but it's not just that. A lot is happening on the back end. So that's all that I had to say at this time.
And I take time, my own sweet time, to click the unmute button, which is another application. Like over this podcast, whenever we're recording, I found at least 2 to 3 times where I've thought of an application right here, like when I'm doing something. Like I was looking at the unmute button and my camera is on right now. I think we need the technology to be smart enough to be able to unmute itself when I look at the unmute button, right? Like, of course, it will have its own bad implications as well. And I think that Lakshit is very curious to also let us know that self-driving cars is a very important example to give when it comes to video and audio analytics, right? So yes, I think self-driving cars are going to be an example for almost every podcast episode that we've had. Like everything will come together to be able to build a self-driving car. Like most of the things that we've spoken about so far, like in different episodes. So yeah, that's very much there. Some of the other things I want to highlight is on the audio analytics side of things, the music industry, right? There are softwares out there which will take a song and dissect all elements of a song. It's literally like doing a postmortem of a human body or any sort of a body, right? Where you get to know each element and what is in there. That breakdown is available with softwares today. Those are basically audio analytics softwares where they're saying that, hey, these many beats per minute, here is what the sound wave looks like, so on and so forth, right? So that's a very good application of voice analytics which has come to light. And then there are use cases like, let's mash up these two things and build the best song. If these two songs were a hit, right? It had these audio components in it. What if we were to take all the audio components of these two songs, make a third song, and what is the probability that third song will also be a hit? Guess what? It will be, because EDM as a music genre has stayed for the longest time, right? At least that's my analysis as an end person, not as an end user, not as a person from the music industry. But I think EDM is something that everybody resonates to, because that has very less to do with the language of the song, but more about the music itself, right? I think those are like the industries that would benefit very highly from audio analytics. And as I was saying, in my opinion, video and audio analytics are less consumer focused at this point of time from where we are at, and more application based, meaning certain section of people or certain businesses would benefit from that technology more. Like there are vision softwares which will look at 1 million images and say that here is where this person has been or here are all the images of this person, right? We get those Google recommendations and Google Photos as well, where you can just pick a face and it will find from your phone wherever that person's photo is, right? That is also video analytics. Some applications which are very useful for from an audio standpoint is the audio surveillance, right? If you say a word which is banned, not banned per se, but which is dangerous enough number of times, then it is highly likely that you'll get somebody legal from the legal department knocking at your door and saying that, hey, what are you up to, right? Audio analytics gets super duper important in things like this. Like, let's say that there was monitoring put in a given area, right? Audio monitoring was implemented in a given area because there was threat. How does an audio analytics application cancel out the noise in the first place, then cancel out the voices that it has not been trained on, and then find out rest of the voices? Like, these applications are simple but are super difficult to build. It exists today, but it is there with the top-notch agencies who will be doing the surveillances. Like, these are my assumptions, but from a consumer standpoint, we are still getting there. Like, the music industry thinks, I think, that if I were able to play a guitar, I wouldn't rely on a software to do that job. I would rather do it in my own way because it's a creative medium. Web analytics is not a creative medium, but audio and video analytics is fully for is mainly for the mediums which are creative in nature, and that is also the reason why it is not as widely a common application as we'd like it to be. Those are some of my thoughts to sum this up. I think this is a great topic to dwell more into, and personally speaking, the sonic engineering for sound, if you all get time, this is for the listeners, please read on the sonic engineering. That is mind-boggling in the way that analytics has matured itself today. That's what we have to say, folks. So thank you all for tuning in and interact with us on our